prevention for clinical trials, including ketamine, MDMA, and other novel interventions for OCD.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. So glad everyone could be here. Thanks, Matthias, for the introduction. So as you just heard Shannon discuss, they're doing an MDMA PTSD study, and the MDMA PTSD research has been so fabulous that we said, hey, we treat OCD. Why don't we create our own study looking at MDMA for OCD? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm also going to go a little bit more into ERP because I think many people tonight have discussed it, but what even is it? So as Shannon mentioned, there's been a significant reduction in PTSD from using MDMA. And MDMA induces prosocial effects, feelings of introspection, like she mentioned, connection with others, and there's a lot of overlap between PTSD and OCD. So intrusive symptoms for PTSD, it might be intrusive memories, nightmares. For OCD, it might be intrusive thoughts or images, not even that actually happened, but that are just created. And things like avoidance. So there's these commonalities between PTSD and OCD. So we said, hey, it's working there, let's try it out here. And we don't have any data for you because we have just started this research. So next year, our hope would be do this again and have some data to present. But here are some of our hypotheses. So social reward processing deficits in OCD, so being less positively responsive to socially rewarding stimuli. Oh, hi, sorry. And heightened reactivity to negative stimuli. MDMA is known to modify these responses, so perhaps increasing the attention towards positive facial expressions. So an example of this, let's say I'm someone who has OCD or other anxieties. I'm looking at all of you and I am noticing the faces that are like this and the neutral faces that are like this. But in my brain, I'm like, wow, everyone in this room hates me. So MDMA might make it so I look out in the room and go, wow, Peter's smiling at me. Or, you know, your face is neutral, but maybe you don't actually hate me. Things like that. MDMA might be helpful because of dysfunction in reward circuitry associated with OCD. MDMA is known to increase activity in the nucleus accumbens. And then what I'm going to mainly talk about is CBT and especially ERP and how difficult it can be for clients and patients. So CBT is limited by high dropout and adherence, and we're hoping that MDMA will help facilitate therapeutic alliance and engagement in the treatment. This is just our study, what we're hoping to do. So we have a control, we have MDMA, we're looking for 40 people in total, and everyone will get ERP. So even people who are receiving the control will get the gold standard treatment of exposure and response prevention. Okay, let's talk about ERP. So ERP is a form of CBT under the CBT umbrella, and it's a behavioral therapy that exposes people to stimuli that provokes their obsessions, their intrusive thoughts, doubts, urges, or images, and the uncomfortable emotions that accompany disgust, anxiety, discomfort generally, and then encourages people to resist engaging in the compulsive responses. This is what we call response prevention. So I feel like I'm contaminated and I touch the thing and don't do the compulsion, essentially. And this is the gold standard treatment for OCD. And I'll talk a lot about response prevention in this study because you can do the best exposure in the world. You can go out on a limb and really face your fears. But if you do the compulsions after, you're not going to benefit from the learning necessarily. Carolyn spoke about this already. So that cycle of OCD, intrusive thoughts, leading to discomfort, leading to actions or what we call compulsions to alleviate distress. It works short term, but then the cycle starts all over. So how does ERP work? So there's two thoughts here. One is habituation. So this was like the original OG thought with exposure was we sit with the discomfort until it naturally decreases. We basically get used to it. So that would mean if you're afraid of snakes, I would lock you with snakes and you would stay there until your anxiety went away. You probably wouldn't like that. This other idea is of inhibitory learning. So through exposure, we are learning new information. I put you in a room with snakes and maybe you still feel really uncomfortable, but the snake doesn't bite you or kill you, and you learn, oh, hey, wait, maybe snakes aren't a death sentence. Maybe I don't like them, but I can tolerate being with them. So we're creating new pathways, new neural pathways in our brain. I associate snake with death, but now, hey, wait, I haven't been killed by a snake. What's going on here? Our brains want to make sense of this information. It says dog example. I just use a snake instead because I'm feeling snaky. So focusing on tolerating discomfort, learning how to feel emotions rather than trying to get rid of the emotion. There's different types of exposure. That's fun. So in vivo is the one that you're doing in real life. So that is holding the snake, touching the doorknob, driving the car. Imaginal is for ones that we can't necessarily recreate. So a really common one, a new parent has a baby, intrusive thoughts about dropping the baby, can't do exposure to dropping the baby. No, but we can write about it. We can think about it. We can lean into that fear and then walk the baby down the stairs. Or we could do interoceptive exposures. So people feel anxious. They feel all kinds of uncomfortable physical sensations. My heart's probably racing a little bit right now. We can do exposure to these uncomfortable sensations that feel like anxiety or mimic people's anxiety and help people build a tolerance. I'm going to run in place really, really fast. My heart's going to start racing. That might feel like a panic attack or how I feel when I have an intrusive thought. And I can learn that I can live with it, that my heart racing doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to die. Okay, here's the most important part in my mind, the response prevention. Resisting compulsions is hard. So the ultimate goal is to resist the compulsions 100%. But if you go into therapy and say, hey, I have OCD and I want to work on it, and the therapist says, just stop that. That ruminating you're doing, that checking you're doing, the hand washing, just knock it off, probably not going to be very helpful. So maybe we start with postponing the compulsions. So you want to do it right now, can you wait a little bit? Or we practice opposite action, doing the opposite of what OCD is telling you. Or even undoing compulsions. Hey, I washed my hands. Okay, let's go touch the thing again. Starting with like some small steps. We can reward ourselves, we can make it harder to do compulsions, etc. Going back to what's the goal? So new learning to inhibit old learning, increasing our tolerance of uncertainty. At the crux of OCD is humans who want to know things. And every single person in this room wants to have information. Even if you don't have OCD, we want to know what's coming in the future. We want to know what's going on right now. OCD, a little bit harder to deal with that uncertainty. We want to increase our tolerance of discomfort. We want to decrease compulsions. And now it comes to why do we want to do ERP? So as I said, part of the reason we're trying to augment, that's when we're augmenting ERP with MDMA is to try and make this easier for people because OCD keeps people from school, work, values, hobbies, family, relationships. And ERP, as I just described to you, is pretty darn scary. So we're hoping that the MDMA can help form a relationship between the co-therapist, like Shannon described, and the client, the participant, to help make it more doable. We're hoping that it increases willingness and openness to feel uncomfortable and help people get back to these things that are important to them. We're kind of already talking about this, but other options, ERP is the gold standard treatment in terms of therapy, but of course, medications, acceptance and commitment therapy, adding things, so you don't have to do exposure and response prevention in isolation. You could add self-compassion, mindfulness, values work. The only thing I always tell people to be wary of is cognitive restructuring, which is just challenging OCD's thoughts. I'm not going to take anyone's intrusive thought and put it up on the board and try to convince you to not think that way. OCD is probably going to be pretty mad if we do that. So that's the one thing. If you hear a therapist says, hey, let's challenge this thought, red flags. So will exposure work for me? Only one way to find out, try it if you haven't already, or try it in combination with other things. 50 to 60% effectiveness, like Carolyn mentioned. And if you're doing it and you're not seeing success, looking for avoidance, ways that you might be accommodating yourself or getting accommodations from others, secret compulsions or undoing of exposures, or the possibility that maybe you're doing ERP, but you need a little bit more ERP, or even to try medication with it. Barriers, other than it's really hard, it can be expensive, it takes time, access. We have a lot of great resources for you all. I think we had a lot of handouts, so I hope you were able to grab some of those. We also have studies that focus specifically on ERP, no medication requirements, so feel free to reach out to us there. And then, yeah, here's our MDMA plus CBT and OCD team. Thank you.